Let's start our first sub-lesson by talking about Windows versions and features. And we'll begin with Windows 8 and 8.1. First of all, you need to know the difference between versions and editions. A version would be Windows 8 or Windows 7. But then you have editions for each of these versions. For Windows 8, you need to be concerned with Standard, Pro, and Enterprise. Now, when it comes to Windows 8, whenever I refer to Windows 8 during this course, I really mean the latest update to Windows 8, which currently, as of the recording of this video, is Windows 8.1 with additional updates. So whenever I talk about Windows 8, I'm really talking about the latest update. And if you have Windows 8 running, you should update it to 8.1 and as far as it can go as soon as you can. So anyway, we have three editions. We have the Standard, the Pro, and the Enterprise. And what makes them different is the components within each edition. This table shows some of the common components and which editions they run in. So for example, it starts with Internet Explorer. Internet Explorer runs in every edition, and it makes sense because you want to have a browser in every edition of Windows. And you might upgrade Internet Explorer to the latest version, or you might use a different browser. You might use Chrome or Firefox. Either way, Microsoft offers you their built-in browser, Internet Explorer. And every edition has that built in. The next element on the list is Remote Desktop. You'll notice there's a slight difference here. It runs in Pro and Enterprise, and it also runs in the Standard edition, but it says, but client only. What that means is the Windows 8 Standard client can go out to the network and take control of other computers using the Remote Desktop program, but it itself cannot be controlled. However, for Pro and Enterprise, these can remotely control other systems and be remotely controlled. Next on the list is Domain Join. With the Pro and Enterprise editions, you can join a Microsoft domain, which is essentially a larger network, usually, and one that is controlled by a Windows server, which has the Active Directory services installed on it. It's a domain controller. And the Standard edition, that cannot connect to domains. You can have it as a part of a work group or a home group, but not a domain. The same applies to BitLocker encryption and EFS. You can have these types of encryption with the Pro and Enterprise editions, but not with the Standard edition. If you need to have built-in Microsoft encryption, then you need to go with the Pro edition. However, there are third-party options for encryption. You could use WinZip, or you could use OpenPGP, that kind of thing. So you can go with other third-party options instead of using EFS or BitLocker. Next is Hyper-V. This allows us to do virtualization and run other operating systems within our operating system. And that's available on the Pro and Enterprise editions, but only the 64-bit editions. So you have to have a 64-bit system running. And again, not available on the Standard edition. And then you have Windows To Go, not available on Standard or Pro, only on Enterprise. It's meant for enterprise networks where you could get a USB flash drive with the entire Windows 8 operating system on it and plug that into your computer and actually boot off of it. So those are some of the elements within the three editions. And there's a whole huge list of elements, but this is just a basic idea of the components that you'll see and might be tested on for the exam. Now, you can find out your version within Windows in several ways. We're running a Windows 8 Standard Edition on this particular computer right here. And don't worry, we're going to show Pro as well. But there's a lot of ways to show the version. You can open the control panel from the Start menu, and we'll go down to our Start button and right-click on that, and then select the control panel here, and that'll bring up our control panel. And from there, we would go to the System option. Click on that. And that shows the Windows edition that we're running. So we're running Windows 8.1. But it's just standard. So you don't see Pro, you don't see Enterprise here. You can also run the control panel real fast from the Run prompt. And right off the bat, I want you to get in the habit of using the Run prompt. And you can open that from the Start button, as we showed before, or you could press the Windows key and R on the keyboard as well. And from there, you just type Control and press Enter, and that'll bring up that control panel. Okay? You can also go into the command prompt and find out the programmatic version that we're running. And to open the command prompt, we can go to the Run prompt and type CMD, press Enter. And from there, you see the version. You can also type VER and press Enter, and that'll show the version from wherever you are in the command prompt. And this is the programmatical version number, 6.3. That's the architectural number as far as Windows is concerned. It's Windows 8, but as far as the core of the system goes, it's considered version 6.3. And that's the equivalent of Windows 8.1. So interesting stuff there. But what you see in System is the consumer name, Windows 8, Windows 8.1, Windows 7, that sort of thing. Now let's talk about Windows 8 minimum requirements. Whenever you install an operating system or upgrade to a newer operating system, you need to make sure that your computer meets the minimum requirements set by Microsoft. And here are those requirements. First of all, you need a processor that is at least 1 gigahertz, and 64-bit is recommended. While Windows 8 can run on a 32-bit system, it's recommended that you run it in a 64-bit system. And most new systems today are 64-bit. You also have to have RAM. You have to have 1 gigabyte if you're running a 32-bit system, or 2 gigabytes if you're running a 64-bit system. And 4 gigabyte is recommended. And honestly, I might say you want to have more than that. You might want to have 8 or 16 gigabytes, depending on what you're doing with the system. Free drive space, 16 gigabytes of free space for the 32-bit system, and 20 gigabytes of free space for the 64-bit system. That's usually not an issue. Most systems will have that much free space available. And then video. You need to run DirectX 9, although when you install Windows 8, that'll actually install a newer version of DirectX. DirectX 10 is recommended, and that's the standard for Windows 8. But if you're going to do an upgrade from Windows 7, you want to make sure you're running DirectX 9 currently or higher. So that's the Windows 8 minimum requirements. For the exam, you really need to know the editions and the types of components that are run in each edition and the minimum requirements. Next is Windows 7. Windows 7 has more editions. It has Starter, a very, very basic type of Windows 7. Then it has Home Premium, Professional, Ultimate, and Enterprise. And here's a table showing some of the differences with those. By default, Windows 7 comes with Internet Explorer 8, and all editions run that browser. And of course, you're going to want to upgrade that if you are installing Windows 7 on a computer. You're going to want to upgrade that for functionality and for security reasons. Here we have Backup to Network. The Starter and Home Premium editions cannot do that, but the other 3 can. Domain Join, as we showed in Windows 8. The first 2 editions, no. The other editions, yes. These can join domains, these cannot. BitLocker Drive Encryption is separated from EFS when it comes to Windows 7. BitLocker is only available in the Ultimate and the Enterprise editions. And EFS, the encrypting file system, which allows you to encrypt 1 or more files, is available in Professional, Ultimate, and Enterprise. Now, when you're studying, if you can get your hands on the Windows 7 Ultimate, that's what I recommend. That's the best one to study from because it has things like the ability to join a domain, the BitLocker Drive Encryption, and EFS. And if you're going to run Windows 8, I recommend Windows 8.1 Pro. Windows 7 minimum requirements. You'll see the requirements here, similar to Windows 8. You have a 1 gigahertz processor, again 64-bit is recommended, basically the same RAM recommendations and free drive space recommendations, as well as video. So you want to have basically the same requirements when you memorize these. You're going to memorize the same requirements for Windows 7 as with Windows 8. And finally, Windows Vista. The chances of you installing Windows Vista or working with it are pretty slim. It has a very small percentage of the desktop market as of the recording of this video. But you never know. You might actually need to use Vista with a particular computer. And Vista has a lot of editions: Starter, Home Basic, Home Premium, Business, Ultimate, and Enterprise. But it's the requirements here that are interesting. The processor only has to be 800 megahertz. You only need 512 megabytes of RAM. So it's a lot lower requirement than Windows 7 or Windows 8. So if you have an older computer that is running a very old version of Windows, say Windows XP or 2000, and you are required to upgrade that to Vista, well, you could do that if it meets these requirements. And if it's a very old system, it may not be able to run Windows 7 or Windows 8. So Windows Vista might be your only option. So those are requirements for Windows Vista. And that's the Windows versions and features. And that's it for this sublesson.